Today I'm reviewing Parker Pyne Investigates. It is a collection of 12 short stories by Agatha Christie, written in the 30s again. And Parker Pyne is an interesting character. He's bald like me, he's a little overweight like me, he's a little bit older than I am. But he spent his life working in an office, gathering and compiling statistics. And because of that, he feels that he can basically classify human unhappiness into like 5 or 6 different categories. And so he goes into business for himself, and he basically sets up this advertisement. I'm going to read from Christie's own preface to the 1953 edition of this short story collection. It's called Meeting Parker Pyne. One day, having lunch at a corner house, I was enraptured by a conversation on statistics going on at a table behind me. I turned my head and caught a vague glimpse of a bald head, glasses, and a beaming smile. I caught sight, that is, of Mr. Parker Pyne. I had never thought much about statistics before, and indeed seldom think of them now, but the enthusiasm with which they were being discussed awakened my interest. I was just considering a new series of short stories. Then and there I decided on the general treatment and scope, and in due course enjoyed writing them. My own favorites are the case of the discontented husband and the case of the rich woman, the theme for the latter being suggested to me by having been addressed by a strange woman 10 years before when I was looking into a shop window. She said with the utmost venom, "I'd like to know what I can do with all the money I've got. I'm too seasick for a yacht, and I've got a couple of cars and 3 fur coats, and too much rich food fare turns my stomach." Startled, I murmured, "Hospitals?" She snorted, "Hospitals? I don't mean charity. I want to get my money's worth," and departed wrathfully. That, of course, was now 25 years ago. Today all such problems would be solved for her by the income tax inspector, and she would probably be more wrathful still. This collection is a great grouping of stories. The first 6 of them are Parker Pyne dealing with cases in his London office. The cases that he deals with in the London office include the 2 that Agatha Christie mentioned, as well as the case of the middle-aged wife, the case of the discontented soldier, the case of the distressed lady, the case of the city clerk. The second half shows Parker Pyne on vacation in Europe and the Middle East. These stories include Have You Got Everything You Want?, The Gate of Baghdad, The House at Shiraz, The Pearl of Price, Death on the Nile, and The Oracle at Delphi. Now, the second to the last story, Death on the Nile, of course, will sound familiar to you if you've heard of the novel with Hercule Poirot, which brings up an interesting point. I think that we can make a literary connection between Hercule Poirot and Parker Pyne. While they both do have different approaches to finding solutions for their clients, and indeed they take on different cases. While Poirot's are more murder cases, Parker Pyne tends to deal more with matters of the heart, which might even connect him a little bit with Harley Quinn, though he wants to clear up unhappiness, whereas Harley Quinn is a little more focused on love and romance. Parker Pyne does address some murders. He solves 2 murders in the course of these short stories. He also does solve some thefts and a kidnapping case. But really the connection here is through 2 incidental characters. Parker Pyne and Hercule Poirot share the same secretary. And we can assume, since Miss Lemon, the name of the secretary, is not mentioned in any Poirot stories before this, that she's first Parker Pyne's secretary and later goes on to be Poirot's secretary. She's noted for being very prim and proper, very concerned with filing and coming up with the perfect filing system. The other character that we meet is Ariadne Oliver, who is kind of a type of Agatha Christie. She's a mystery writer, and she's hired by Parker Pyne a couple of times to come up with plots for some adventures that he wants to send his clients on. Later on, she becomes kind of a more central character in Poirot's world, working with him, solving crimes with him, bringing crimes to him, and so she gets much more developed, as does Miss Lemon. So what are Parker Pyne's methods? Well, they change. In the first half, he's really kind of a stage director or a producer. What he does is when people come to him and they're unhappy, for example, in the case of the discontented wife, we have a middle-aged housewife whose banker husband has been taking his new secretary, his young blonde secretary, all around town, taking her dancing, buying her mink coats, but he'll never go out with his wife. So Parker Pyne hires this gigolo to basically wine and dine this discontented housewife. He also arranges for her to get her hair done, to get new gowns, and arranges for them to be seen in the same places where her husband is taking this young woman, in order to make the husband jealous and to kind of realize what kind of a fool he's being. In each of these cases, in the first half, Parker Pyne is doing this very thing. He's using actors, he's using writers, he's using different people to send his clients on adventures. In the second half, he's on vacation, so he's a little more reluctant to take on cases, but he does take them on. People either recognize him, or if he sees someone in distress, he will go to them and talk to them and resolve matters. The second collection, or second half of the short stories, are very interesting because many of them take place in the Middle East, and you can really see the influence on Christie's own life, where she has been spending time in the Middle East on digs at excavation sites, and that's really starting to play a more important role in her work. Christie talks about in her preface the seeds for this coming out of this idea of statistics, but really the theme, I believe, is happiness. In the first 6 stories, she takes a rather conventional approach to dealing with various types of kind of short-term unhappiness by giving people adventures, by giving people romances or love affairs, by having people rescue other people. In the second half, I think that the sadness people feel is a little bit more acute, and he's working more to kind of solve problems, more long-term problems, or at least problems that have where there's more at stake. This collection is a delightful collection. We're only going to see Parker Pyne in 2 more stories in later collections of works by Christie, and so it's kind of nice to get this just little slice of life image of this character Parker Pyne and devoting himself to trying to make people happy, and he does it in very interesting ways. I give this collection a 4 out of 5. It's a really good collection. I hope you read it.